So all of these things, disregarding whether you live at home or not, they all present sort of this panoply of bewildering options that we have to choose from as to where we're going to get assistance from. If you're not familiar with Venn diagrams, this is a Venn diagram, V-E-N-N. I love them. It's not nearly as complicated as it looks. Basically, it's a way of illustrating, choices in this case. One is to go to an independent living where some of these things will be taken care of. The other is assisted living, which is a different layer or level of care. The other is nursing care or nursing facility. And in those places where these things overlap, there's things called Alzheimer's care or memory care, or dementia and Alzheimer's care, which may be a locked unit in a facility or a nursing home. So these things kind of overlap a little bit. In the very center is something called a continuing care retirement community. And that's where all of these services are available, and you move along the continuum as you need it. The one thing that's not represented in this diagram is the one that is outside of all of those things, and that's what we're going to talk about today. That's staying in your own home and how you're going to manage that as you go along. So let's talk about staying in your home right now, and I'm going to make the assumption that most of you, because you got here this morning in relatively inclement weather, are still pretty well. Your health is still pretty good. And so, one of the things that you're looking at is the cost of going into some other type of care. Right now, if you have a home and you own it and the mortgage is paid up, you have no housing cost. You have no rent. You have no mortgage payment. And that's great. I'm delighted if that's the case for you. You do have maintenance costs, and you do have the actual work, the demands of performing maintenance if you don't pay someone to do it. It always has a cost. I mean, you always have to pay for air filters even, or cleaning the gutters, or whatever those things might be. You also have the cost, some of you will have the cost of taxes, certainly of insurance, homeowners insurance, possibly mortgage insurance, and you need to remember these costs when you do these calculations, or when I do these calculations. Taxes, just a quick note on that. If you're over 65, both in the county of Albemarle, most of the counties in this area, and in the city of Charlottesville, there is a program for people who are over 65 or disabled to get a tax discount or a complete abatement. And if you're interested in more information, you should see the county office, the county assessment office. Many of you are concerned about leaving your home or your estate to your children, and that is the primary reason that many people want to hang on to their home beyond the point where they can really take care of it or afford it, or where it really does not offer them a good quality of life to stay in it. They hang on to it because they want to pass it on to their children. And the question to ask yourself, and perhaps them, is, do they really want it? You would be surprised to hear that the answer is often no. And if you think about people that, either yourself or people that you know, if they have children who, for example, have a home and a career in Manhattan and have no intention of leaving Manhattan, they may very well not want to inherit this albatross that requires them to come back and forth, whether they rent it or live in it or anything else. Have that discussion now and plan for that now. And you might be very, very surprised at some of the answers you get with regard to leaving a property. And again, I encourage you to think about not so much what you're going to leave to the kids, but what kind of lifestyle you want to live, and what are the assets that are going to allow that to be practicable for you. The other big question is, what does home mean? Right? What does that mean? It means, for some people, a great big giant old home place that's been in the family for 3 or 4 or 5 generations. It's multi-story. You've got stairs up and down, and even on the little entranceway there, you can see there are stairs. It's got an accumulation of stuff in it, pots and pans and sheets and towels and furniture, albums full of photographs, stuff that has been gathering dust for quite a long time now, doesn't get used now, and if you stay there, someone's going to have the chore of going through it at some point. So that is involved. Many of these places have outbuildings as well that are full of equipment, tractors that are used to mow the grass. If it's a farm property, there may be other things in there as well. And 30 acres of lawn or grass to mow, plus 400 acres of farmland that need to be managed in some way. There may or may not be livestock on it. That's what home means to a lot of people in this area, and they try to hang on to that. Home also very often means a smaller, more recently acquired home or townhome, which is very often what people look at when they move into the city, or places like branch lands, which I guess are considered townhomes or garden homes. An apartment or other multifamily type arrangement, places like Hessian Hills that have a number of units right together. Some people downsize into an independent living community, which is essentially an apartment, really. There's very little difference between those two, and I'll talk more about that next month. Some people, home now means living with another relative, either an adult child or a sibling or someone else that allows you to split costs, but that is home for you now. You made that arrangement, and you want to stay there. So we get to this point, and everybody's like, well, okay, I'm home, fine. Why do I need to consider anything else at all? Everything's great. Well, you're not going to stay as well as you are today. We know that. There is a natural decline when we age. It does not have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be, it's not necessarily defined by ill health, but we will, because we are human, all decline in some way. And that means that transportation may be an issue. I have a client who lives way out in Earlysville, not really in Earlysville, but a big property out near Earlysville on a little tiny winding country road. And her husband is very ill. And I asked her, I said, well, one thing is clear, that if you had any kind of issue going on, you would have a difficult time at night driving this person into the ER or whatever. In a snowstorm, the EMTs might have a difficult time getting to you. And these are the kinds of things that we need to think about, right? Is it makes sense to stay in this home given my situation? Getting up and down stairs, I talked about that in the little farm place, and I'll talk about it again in a minute. Doing the maintenance, that is going to become more difficult. I can tell you, I live in an apartment that has a loft in it, so up at the top of another flight of stairs from those 3 stairs I climb to get into the apartment. There is a light fixture in the ceiling, in a very low ceiling, but I need to climb on a chair to change the bulb, and the light fixture is right at the top of the stairs. And I can tell you that I do not climb on a chair at the very top of a staircase to change a light bulb where I'm not sure if I can hold my balance. It would be one thing to fall off the chair. It would be another thing to fall down the stairs. So I call the maintenance people in my apartment complex to change a light bulb. And that's great. It's great to have that. Safety and security are concerned as you become more frail, as you age, and we all will. You worry about fires, you worry about intruders, and most important of all, every older person I know is terrified of taking a fall because most of us know that sometimes is difficult to come back from. Critical to me, and I see many people decline as a result of the lack of social interaction with people, getting to church, having family visits, and just in general being involved in social activities are very important parts of this planning as you grow older. If you have a steeper decline, if you have, as a result of advancing age, if your health just begins to fail, or if you have a critical medical problem, let's say you do take a fall and you fracture your pelvis or something of that nature, or have a serious illness like a heart attack that restricts your ability to operate, or means that you go into rehabilitation, that often changes the baseline of your health. So, for example, I have that fall that I talked about, and I go into the hospital, I get surgery, they pin my hip back together. Where do I go from there? I go to skilled nursing, right, for rehabilitation to gain my strength back and to get the mobility back and help the healing process. In that process, in that period of time, my core strength has been depleted, and my health has generally declined. My baseline health is probably not as strong as it was before I broke my hip. So now your considerations have changed a little bit in what you can and can't do. And what that means is those things that may not have been a physical impediment to you before are now a bit more of a problem staying in your home. So let's say you've had that surgery, you've been to rehab, you came home, you're weaker, and your balance is not as good as it once was, and that often happens. And your bathroom has a shower enclosure and a bathtub in it, and you need to get into it to take a shower. And stepping over that ledge like this, is that a good idea after you've just come out of breaking a hip? It's wet, it's slippery, you're off balance, and you got no handhold. Not a good idea. So we're going to revisit that entire list of as your health declines, you need to revisit your ability to stay in your home. As the end of life approaches, and no one likes to talk about this, I talk about it freely, and I talk about it freely all the time. This is not, I am not talking about where you are actively dying, where you have a terminal illness, but that part of your life where you really are thinking about the end. These are the things that are going to happen. One, your care needs are going to intensify. Your medical care needs, your practical care needs. You're also going to need, or someone is going to need to think about, is this person safe in their home? If you are bedbound, what happens if you have a fire? Right? What happens if you have dementia and can't remember to take your medications? What happens if you wander and it's the middle of January and it's 12 degrees outside? That's not exactly safe. What happens if it's a husband and wife and one of them has dementias and they have what they call or label people with behaviors, and that's things like throwing things, fighting people, biting, kicking, those kinds of things. That's not a safe situation. Are they at risk for falls? And that could be caused by a number of different reasons. It's very likely you may need, at this point, skilled care in your home to manage medications, to do therapies, to reposition people, all those sorts of things. You may need physical assistance, possibly even 24/7 when it means getting out of bed, getting onto the toilet, getting back to bed safely. You may need someone there, even if it's just a sitter or a family member or someone like that. At the very end, when in fact you are bedbound, you are going to need someone to help you with what's called skin care, to provide care to prevent breakdown in skin care or bed sores. That's often caused by a failure to reposition people, or because they are incontinent and they're laying in their own urine for an extended period of time, or diapers that haven't been changed. Those are very unpleasant things to think about, but they are very, very common. So we want to think about how are we going to manage all of these things. And if I haven't scared the bejesus out of you already, and I know that you all know people that have been in these situations, or you wouldn't be here considering this. The good news is all of this can be done in your home.